For most of human civilization, money had weight. It glittered. It clinked. It could be melted down, stolen, hidden, buried. Gold and silver were not just symbols of wealth, they were wealth. Even paper money once meant something tangible. A dollar wasn't just paper. It was a receipt, a claim check for a fixed amount of gold sitting in a vault. But on August 15, 1971, that connection was severed. In a calm televised address, President Richard Nixon made a decision that quietly transformed the global economy. He closed what was called the gold window, and in doing so, he ended the last link between money and physical reality. Most people didn't notice. But that night, the modern financial world was born. To understand how dramatic this was, we have to go back to 1944. World War II was still raging, but the Allies already knew they would need a new economic order once the fighting stopped. So representatives from 44 nations met at a resort in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. The goal was stability. The Great Depression had been fueled by currency chaos, competitive devaluations, trade wars, financial panic. They wanted a system that would prevent that from happening again. The solution was elegant. The US dollar would be backed by gold at a fixed rate of $35 per ounce. Other countries would peg their currencies to the dollar, and foreign governments, not ordinary citizens, could exchange their dollars for US gold. This made the dollar the anchor of the global system. Gold backed the dollar. The dollar backed the world. It worked because America was different after World War II. The US held nearly 70% of the world's gold reserves. Its factories were intact. Its economy was dominant. Trust was high, but embedded in the system was a quiet flaw. For global trade to grow, the world needed dollars. That meant America had to run trade deficits and send dollars overseas. The more the world grew, the more dollars it required. But the gold supply did not grow at the same pace. This became known as the Triffin Dilemma. The system required America to supply dollars globally. But the more dollars it supplied, the less credible its gold backing became. By the 1960s, cracks were forming. The US was funding the Vietnam War, launching massive domestic programs, expanding its global military presence. Spending surged, and dollars flooded into Europe and Asia. Foreign central banks began doing the math. Were there too many dollars compared to gold? France was especially skeptical. President Charles de Gaulle openly criticized what he called America's exorbitant privilege, the ability to print the world's reserve currency. France began converting its dollars into gold. Other nations followed. Gold began leaving U.S. vaults. In response, major Western nations formed the London Gold Pool in 1961. It was a coordinated effort to stabilize gold prices and defend the $35 peg. But pressure kept building. Speculators smelled weakness. By 1968, the London Gold Pool collapsed. Gold markets were temporarily shut down. Confidence was eroding. By 1971, the U.S. no longer had enough gold to cover all the dollars circulating globally. If every country demanded gold at once, the system would implode. So Nixon acted. On August 15, 1971, he announced that the U.S. would temporarily suspend gold convertibility. Temporary became permanent. The gold window never reopened. The Bretton Woods system ended overnight. The world entered the age of fiat currency. Fiat means money by government decree. It has value because the state says it does, and because people believe it does. No gold, no silver, no physical anchor, just trust. The immediate aftermath was chaotic. Currencies began floating freely against each other. The dollar depreciated. Inflation surged throughout the 1970s. Oil prices exploded after OPEC imposed embargoes. By the end of the decade, inflation in the United States reached double digits. Interest rates climbed toward 20%. Confidence in the dollar wavered. The experiment nearly failed. Then came Paul Volcker. As chairman of the Federal Reserve in 1979, he made a brutal decision. He raised interest rates dramatically to crush inflation. It triggered recessions. Unemployment soared. Businesses collapsed. But inflation was defeated, and credibility was restored. The dollar survived. But survival required something else. In the early 1970s, after abandoning gold, the U.S. reached an agreement with Saudi Arabia. Oil would be priced exclusively in dollars. In return, the U.S. provided military protection. This created the petrodollar system. Now, every country that needed oil needed dollars. Demand for dollars became structural. Even without gold backing, the dollar had something else: global necessity. Energy, trade, finance, military power. The dollar became stronger than ever. But the character of the system had changed. Without gold discipline, money supply could expand more easily. Government debt began to grow steadily, from under $400 billion in 1971 to tens of trillions today. Each crisis reinforced the pattern: the 1987 stock crash, the 2000 dot-com collapse, the 2008 financial crisis, the 2020 pandemic shock. Each time, central banks responded the same way: lower rates, print money, increase liquidity. Quantitative easing became normal. Balance sheets expanded massively. Money creation moved from printing presses to digital keystrokes. With each intervention, markets recovered faster. Asset prices soared: stocks, real estate, bonds, private equity. But wages did not rise at the same speed. This created a widening wealth gap. Those who owned assets benefited from monetary expansion. Those who depended on wages felt rising living costs. This dynamic is sometimes called the Cantillon effect. New money enters the system unevenly. It benefits some first. It distorts prices. It reshapes society. For 50 years, the fiat experiment has powered globalization. It has financed technological revolutions, built multinational corporations, lifted billions out of poverty. But it has also created fragile leverage. The modern system depends on confidence in central banks, government debt markets, the dollar's reserve status. Unlike gold-backed systems, there is no physical constraint. The only limit is trust, and trust can shift quickly. History shows that monetary regimes rarely last forever. The Roman denarius was gradually debased until silver content nearly vanished. Weimar Germany printed to fund war reparations and destroyed its currency. Zimbabwe hyperinflated into collapse. But there is one key difference today. This system is global. It is interconnected. If confidence cracks, it will not be isolated. It will ripple across continents in seconds. Digital finance accelerates both growth and panic. We are living inside the largest monetary experiment in human history. A system untethered from metal. A system driven by belief. A system sustained by confidence in institutions. The night Nixon spoke in 1971, Americans were more concerned about baseball scores than monetary policy. There were no protests about gold convertibility, no understanding that money had fundamentally changed. But from that moment forward, every financial crisis, every housing boom, every stock surge, every debt expansion traces back to that decision. The dollar stopped being a promise of gold. It became a promise of stability. And stability depends on credibility. So here we are, over 50 years into the fiat era. Debt levels unprecedented. Asset prices elevated. Central banks more powerful than ever. The question isn't whether the system works. It clearly has, for decades. The real question is whether belief can stretch indefinitely. Because when money is metal, its limit is physical. When money is paper, its limit is political. When money is digital, its limit is psychological. And psychology can turn faster than gold ever could. The day the dollar almost died wasn't marked by chaos. It was marked by quiet transformation, a subtle shift from scarcity to elasticity, from metal to math, from gold to confidence. And we are still living in its shadow. If money is trust, then understanding history is understanding how fragile trust can be. The next transformation in money may not look dramatic either. It may come quietly, digitally, incrementally. But when it does, it will once again reshape the world. Because money is never just currency. It is power. It is belief. It is control. And sometimes, it is an experiment. Welcome to History Meet Money.